The Timeshift.
Whoa, how spooky! What did you think about this week's episode of Doctor Who? Leave a comment down below and I'll get back to you shortly. Once you're there, be sure to like, subscribe, click the bell and do all the YouTube stuff that YouTube wants you to do, because YouTube is an increasingly scary place for small content creators. Support your local small content creator today, it will do them a power of good. Now on to the review. And so, after yet another excruciatingly long break between seasons, here comes the next one. Hooray! The shortest season in the series' history, excluding that animated one from the early 2000s. I'm not bitter about this at all, no sirree! And I'm certainly not bitter about the fact that certain plot elements from this entire story arc won't be resolved till midway through next year. Oh, what a fun time we have ahead of us. Alright, so actually to get on to the matter itself, I have to say that this opening episode shows a lot of promise for stuff that is to come, though it does have a few rough edges around here and there. I feel that this is Chibnall's second best episode that he's done so far, which might sound like damning with faint praise, but I have to say that I really did enjoy the opening episode that he did at the start of Whittaker's run, and had the rest of his term as showrunner been of that same quality, we'd be in a far different space here and now, with us not celebrating the return of Russell T Davies quite as much. With this episode, the pacing was near perfect, but with a few bum notes along here and there. I feel that performatively everyone was bringing their A game, and I feel that this story is a fine start to a larger story. If Chibnall can stick the landing of this, then it will be his trial of a Time Lord. If he can't, then it will be his trial of a Time Lord. Hey hey! Ba-da-ba-ba-da-ba. Boo! Look, I'm going to be honest with you, dear listener, it's hard for me to review this episode because so much of what takes place in it is stuff that won't be resolved for several weeks, if not several months yet to come. As such, it's hard to really drill down into the elements of the story which work or don't work, because again, we don't know the full context of a lot of this stuff, and a lot of it won't be resolved for quite some time. So with that in mind, I'm only really going to focus on the core story of this episode, and then fan out and transition to the story arc elements as we go further into this review. So with that in mind, I'm going to start off with something that might be a bit of a sore point for some people, and honestly, it might be one of the more controversial things about that I say about this run of Doctor Who, but if I'm being frank and honest with you, dear listener, I have to say that I'm frankly blown away by how much fresher this show feels without Ryan and Graham. I know some people really like those characters, I like those characters, but not having them in the show, boy, it's like night and day. Seriously. By having such a small initial cast for this episode, we actually saw Jodie Whittaker actually having time to be the Doctor. I know that performatively she's a bit here and there with her portrayal of the Doctor, but still, the fact we actually got more screen time of her doing it, it's a major boon for her, and it might actually give us a chance to see who she is as the Doctor. And what we got of her was fun. It was exciting. She had some great little character moments, some fun little jokes there, which we just didn't get in previous seasons. And with Yaz, we actually had some fun back and forth with her and the Doctor. I mean, my God, there were some moments in this episode where it felt like I'd gone back in time to the Moffat era in the best way possible. Just that dynamic between the Doctor and their companion is something that has been so sorely missing from this entire run of Doctor Who up until this moment. It had a dynamism to it which this era has just been sorely lacking. There were no moments of our characters just sat around a kitchen table talking about their feelings, or running along only to just stop and then sit down and talk about their feelings. Everything we needed to know about our characters, be they new characters or returning characters, was either shown to us during the events that they were wrapped up in, or told to us using a simple line or two. A great example of this will be with our new companion Dan. Despite him being shown as being such an awesome and best kind of guy, he's shown as being someone who would put the needs of others far beyond his own. We see that in the opening scene with him in the museum and him talking just so passionately about his home city and about all the great things that are there. We see that by him working at the food bank and helping more people that are worse off than him. And we see that with the moment where he's there in his house and the little kids come around to do trick-or-treating, and he gives him like the last of his food. You know, he's just this person that puts everyone ahead of himself, and we see that by just the things that he does. Of course, as a character, he's no pushover. We see that with that moment where the drunk guy comes along and does trick-or-treating with him, and he soon sees him off. You know, in that little time that we get to him with that moment, we get a great sense of who he is as a character, without monologues and without people having to sit down and tell him how he's feeling. Sure, he might be a bit of a stereotype. I mean, Christ's sake, he lives just literally a few strides away from Anfield, for God's sake, but still, for the time that we get with him, we get a perfect understanding as to who he is as a character without wordy and heady speeches or lots of really mundane, uninteresting character moments, which we've seen to death in this current incarnation of Doctor Who. And another great element, representation of this, is what we got with Claire, you know, that woman who says that she's been travelling with the Doctor in the past, which is also technically the future. With the short period of time that we get with her, we get this clear understanding that she was someone who loved travelling with the Doctor, and chances are was with them for a very long time. We see that with the temptation that they have of wanting just one more trip with the Doctor. We see them outside the TARDIS just there like, you know, I can't really, but, you know, maybe I really want to, maybe one last trip, but no, I can't yet, because, you know, the timelines and stuff, you just see all running in her head, and she's performed near perfectly by the actor doing it. And we got that again with just that line about going the long way around to get home, which is a reference to Doctor Who's of past. You know, that character might have only just recently stopped travelling with the Doctor. They may have just stopped travelling with the Doctor maybe, a couple of weeks ago, and now they're starting to get cold feet about going from adventures in time and space to just, you know, doing the 9 to 5 again. You know, and I really want to see more of that character and just see more and understand about them. And it'd be bloody confusing for Yaz and the Doctor when they meet them in the past, because they didn't really meet them in the past the first time, so it's going to be really head-bending with them. But, you know, I really appreciate that. I appreciate the playing around with the timeline stuff a little bit more, which I haven't really seen really since River Song, which, you know, I'm not really a fan of River Song, but still, it was a neat idea behind it. The core story of Dan getting kidnapped by the dog guy with the northern voice, it was fun. I don't think I'd build an entire episode around that, because looking at similar episodes like that we've had in the Chibnall run, I don't think it would have landed, to be honest. It would have just been the same kind of thing with arachnids in the UK, or the Pating, or it's a neat idea on paper, but it just doesn't land properly because it just feels rushed at the end. And I have to say, I did like the twist that it turned out they were a benevolent race, even if this one guy really begrudges the position that he's in. It's just like, oh, bloody hell, I've got to save this human. Oh, I don't like this at all. Oh, no. You know, it was a weird mirror to the opener from Chibnall's run. You know, the very first episode of the Chibnall era was a story about an alien bounty hunter tracking humans to kill them for sport. And here we have an alien bounty hunter tracking and hunting humans to save them. You know, if this is something of an intentional mirroring, I think it's very clever. If not, then it's a fine moment of serendipity, I'll certainly say that. If we are going to get into the negatives of this episode, I do feel that the parade of characters and entities that are irrelevant over this upcoming story arc started to get really obnoxious by the middle point of it. We're just cutting to different characters in different time periods and different locations, each of these different scenes having a drastically different pacing to what came before it. And whilst I understand, yeah, this is the first part in a wider story, I really don't like the fact we're spending so little time with the Doctor, even though we're in this position where we can actually spend more time with them. Just the way that some of these sequences are added into this story, there's a part of me that wonders if they weren't just added as an afterthought. You know, like this story had already been largely written, but it got altered relatively late into its development to include these extra plot elements into it. Of course, it doesn't do it quite as bad as some other past stories have done. You know, it's not the whole thing of having a computer screen that just suddenly flashes up the magic word of the season, as we saw with the Promised Land stuff and with previous episodes where it's desperately trying to fit itself into a wider series-long mystery narrative, but still, given the pacing and the tone and the feel between certain scenes within it, it did feel odd. You know, we got this fun little Doctor Who adventure, then all of a sudden we're cutting to someone getting chased by one of the Weeping Angels, who, I'm going to be honest, as neat as that scene was, I'm just sick to death of seeing the weeping angels. As a whole entity, this episode just felt like we were watching the first part of a movie, given how characters are brought into it. You know, we don't fully understand the relevance and the context of the actions that they do, and that is stuff that won't be important until later on. So again, it's hard for me to really discuss those things, because maybe some of these characters will go on to be involved in some fantastic stories, or maybe they won't. I have to say that I really did dig the fact that this episode ended on a cliffhanger. Something that I never really realised I missed quite as much until I had a watch through of all the previous classic Doctor Who episodes, and just, you know, the cliffhangers, they add so much to the episodes. And when we had the opening episode, the woman who fell to Earth, and the fact that ended on a cliffhanger, you know, I really wish that had continued on, because I think that's a fine way of ending an episode of Doctor Who. It just adds a greater sense of dynamism and adventure to it, like a, oh no, here we go again kind of thing. I really like that stuff, and sure, some in the past were a little bit laboured, but that's a whole other discussion. I feel that so much about this season's successes will depend upon how well or not Chibnall is able to tie all this together, and whether or not he's able to stick the landing with his story arc. And I'm going to be honest with you, that's something I don't think that Chibnall is terribly skilled at. He struggled with that in the past quite frequently. I mean, at least us forget, in his very first season as showrunner from Doctor Who, pretty much every villain that he introduced just got away scot-free in the end. They've got sent back in time or moved on to someplace else. They didn't get their punishment or their just desserts, so their be careful what you wish for moment. And I'm worried that we might get something similar here. Like, I don't want an entire story arc of no consequence for the different factions that are made up within it. I am worried that might be the case, but this is his last roll of the dice, and it'd be incredibly reckless for him as a writer, let alone a showrunner of one of the biggest television programs on the planet, to suddenly turn around and go, oh yeah, well they got away at the end, maybe next time we'll get them. Oh, by the way, I'm not going to be getting them next time. Russell T Davies is back because you really don't like me, and we want to just wrap up and end Doctor Who in a neat way. Bye bye everyone. You know, we'll get to that point when we come to it, but we'll soon find out. I have to say, on other minor things, I have to say that I really did dig the way that Mr. Crystalface looks. I like the design of him. It has an echo of 80s Doctor Who with a few more modern prosthetics, even if he just looks like they've just stuck a bunch of healing crystals and glitter to a Halloween mask at some points. And I'm not entirely sure that I'm sold upon the idea of him being yet another hissing and flamboyant Doctor Who villain. I just think I'm just kind of burnt out with them at the moment, but maybe it'll be worth it in the end. I have to say that his introductory scene did bend my head a little bit. You know, the whole thing where we've got those two prison officers there like, oh well, this guy has been here since the very dawn of the universe. And I'm just thinking, alright, so who built this prison for him? And how has he escaped? And who are you people? And why are we spending so much time developing you when we all know that you're just cannon fodder for being to show just how creepy this villain is? You know, I really didn't like that scene quite as much as I think I should have done. But, you know, I just wanted to learn more about this character and who they are and what exactly their big plans are. You know, we'll soon find out as far as that is concerned. I think the Flux, this big, wibbly-wobbly, timey-wimey, terrible, nightmare thing, is an interesting idea for a threat. It's a force, an entity that the Doctor doesn't really know how to deal with or know how to fix. They can't just wave the sonic screwdriver and just magically will it away. They've got to try and figure out something that's going to solve it, or at the very least buy themselves some more time so that they can figure out how to solve it. You can see that perfectly when you got the moment where the Doctor is sending the schematics so that the alien dog people can make that barricade around the planet Earth. I know some people have turned around and gone, oh, well, you know, ain't it convenient that the Doctor was able to come up with a plan that was able to allow these aliens to defeat an entity that could delete space and time? Oh, that's a bit lazy to me. Now, to be honest, we don't actually see it stopping the Flux. So as far as we're concerned in this here and now, it might well have failed. Earth might have been deleted along with that entire other alien race. In this moment, given the history of the Doctor and who they are as a character, I get the distinct feeling it's the Doctor trying to buy time for themselves and for all the innocent people on the planet, so that maybe she can try and save them. So that maybe she has a chance in doing something good, or to ease their suffering, or to give them at least one extra breath of life. I know some people are acting as though it's some kind of plot point or a plot hole, like it's a cinema scenes thing, when it really isn't. Right here and now, we don't know if this is going to work, and in reality, it probably isn't going to be the thing that's going to save Earth. It'll be the Doctor doing some kind of other thing with Mr. Crystal Face or whatever. But whatever, I'm getting into a rant and a tangent bit, but still, you know, it's just little elements like that where I feel that there's some people that are desperately going out of their way to find as many faults with this episode as they physically possibly can do. Maybe because they got a vested interest in it, I don't bloody know, but whatever. We'll move on to a couple other things, like... No, this episode was really weirdly timed for me, as the night before I saw a short little animation by Adult Swim called Learning with Pibby, which I highly recommend that you check out. I'll leave a little link in a little annotation thing in the top right hand corner of the screen. Basically the idea with that, it's a cutie little cartoon character, and all of a sudden this dark, horrible, corrupting, world-ending mass ends up descending upon everything and destroying some of your most beloved childhood memories and favourite characters, like the killing off Scooby-Doo and all that kind of stuff with this alien entity thing. And I'm suddenly getting flashes of that and thinking to myself, oh my god, it's broken through to Dr. Who's world too! Oh no, no one's safe! What's going to happen next? Am I going to be walking to the shops and all of a sudden it's going to descend upon me? Oh god, somebody help us! Doctor Who, save us! Pibby, somebody, no! You know, just a weirdly timed bit, another weird bit of serendipity, but, you know, that's a neat little thing. I don't know if anyone else has seen that, but again, I highly recommend checking it out if you can. Again, it's really hard for me to drill down into this episode too much because so much is still up in the air. Maybe, I'm not going to say it, but it would be interesting to look back on this episode once we get to the end of this entire story arc and just see how well it stands up, but we'll get there when we get there. I have to say that I am disappointed that an episode with Halloween in the title wasn't really Halloween themed. Because if nothing else, that just says to me, well, you could have done the same for Christmas. You could have had a Doctor Who Christmas special that isn't really Christmassy, and rather than do it on New Year's Day when everyone's too pissed and tired to actually bother about it. But you know what? We'll soon see what's happening with that. I have to say that I am cautiously optimistic about this story arc and the future of this season. Maybe it'll work, maybe it won't work, but we'll all find out together. But what did you think, dear listener? What do you think about this week's episode of Doctor Who? Let me know in the comment section down below, and I'll get back to you shortly, either directly in the comments themselves or towards the end of a future video. With that in mind, let us go to Comment Corner! Now it's time for Comment Corner. This week we're going to be looking at the comments from the last Timeshift video that we did, which was news that Russell T Davies was coming back as showrunner from Doctor Who. Big news at the time, and honestly, it's something that people are still chatting away about right until this very moment. Our first comment comes from Darren Williams, who says, happy with the news, though please, no more Rose. And honestly, I have to echo that sentiment. I am happy that Russell T Davies is returning, but please, I don't want Rose Tyler to be brought back anytime soon. I mean, beyond anything else, I just want to see new characters and new settings and new people. I don't want to be bringing back old characters left, right and centre. And even beyond that, I mean, I was never a fan of Rose Tyler to begin with, so bringing her back just feels like a bit too much for my liking, but, you know, we'll see what happens with that. I trust Russell T Davies won't make a total hash of it. They seem to know what they're doing. Our next comment comes from James Levy, who says that he's happy that Russell T Davies is coming back as showrunner, and they feel that they'll make Doctor Who better again. And they say that they hope they'll cast Robert Carlyle, Michael Sheen, or Tom Ellis as the next Doctor. I think that those are all good suggestions for future Doctor Who actors. I really don't know who I'd suggest. I mean, there has been some speculation that Ollie Alexander might be the next Doctor. But even then, that was being teased even before we knew Russell T Davies was going to be the next showrunner. So we'll soon see as far as that is concerned. I'm just honestly interested to see what they'll do again, and what they can do with another new actor playing Doctor Who. Playing the Doctor, rather. But we'll soon see about how all that is concerned. But what about you, dear listener? Who do you think would make a great next Doctor? Leave a comment down below and I'll get back to you shortly. Or just any feelings or thoughts or suggestions that you have as to what you think about this week's episode of Doctor Who. Did you love it? Did you hate it? Let me know in the comment section down below and I'll get back to you shortly, either directly in the comments themselves or towards the end of next week's video. Thank you all for watching. Be sure to do all the YouTuber stuff that YouTube wants you to do, because it will do me a power of good. Thank you all for watching, and goodbye! Thanks for watching. Be sure to like, favourite, subscribe, click the bell and do all the YouTubey stuff that YouTube wants you to do. Go on, it'll do me a power of good. Until next time, my friends, goodbye!